Hello, everybody. I'm a practicing therapist and a doctoral student of psychology. Today, we're going to talk about why you, as a man, if you don't try hard, why you come across more attractive. And some of you men in the comments, the gentlemen in the comments, or viewing this video, you kind of know maybe when you don't try hard, or maybe you are someone who doesn't try hard, you realize that you're attractive. And it's an interesting concept, but there's research on it. And so, actually, the reason is because men who do this and women, they're perceived as authentic. Based on research, authenticity is found to be one of the most attractive attributes. It basically means these folks don't get into their head as much. They don't worry as much about the potential rejection, which can convey confidence. And if any of you guys are looking to increase your confidence, increase your social skills, or kind of work through some of the things you've been struggling with, you can book a call with me. You can email me, and we can work through those things together. I would love to do that at some point when you guys are ready, because I feel like this can really help for your life. If you build some of these skills, you're able to understand what's holding you back, and then you are able to have those relationships. You are able to not be so hard on yourself. And that's why I love my job. I love seeing somebody develop something in themselves that they can never really let go of anymore. They've learned a new skill that they're going to keep with them for the rest of their life. It's why I've dedicated my entire career to things like this. And so the link for that is in the description, and it's also pinned in the comments. The first one is actually one of the most interesting points. Processing fluency increases attractiveness. All that it means is something that the brain can process more easily is more attractive. Faces, designs, behaviors, if there's less barriers to processing that, we perceive it as more appealing. And it's typically because there's not as much variables to process. If a person, for example, maybe he is anxious, but he mentions out loud, hey, I'm feeling a little uncomfortable, that is less processing because we don't have that ambiguity. He outwardly said, I'm feeling a little uncomfortable, but I'm going to make the best out of this day. I'm not really a karaoke guy, but I'm going to give it a shot. Let's say he's doing karaoke. The other guy, maybe he's feeling really anxious. He's uncomfortable. Maybe he's saying, no, I just don't like karaoke. I don't want to. But then maybe there's like some emotions that are mixed, or maybe he's saying he wants to, but it's really clear he's uncomfortable. He's less authentic. Not that he's harming anybody, but there's so much more variables to process with this gentleman. Whereas the other one, it was pretty obvious. He's uncomfortable. He's going to do it anyways. He's easier to process for your brain. And so therefore it's more attractive. And these skills you can build up, which is why I suggested, and that's why I do some of the services I do, so that you guys can build that as well. The next one is authentic self-disclosure. It increases interpersonal attraction for men. Men who tend to not try so hard, based on research, actually do have this natural self-disclosure. It's actually one of the strongest findings in social psychology regarding this aspect and characteristic that we're talking about. People who use self-disclosure honestly and appropriately, it usually has to be socially appropriate, they're rated as more likable. They're more socially attractive. They're more desirable as friends and romantic partners, and they are more likely to have better job opportunities. They're more magnetic, to be completely honest. This research is in 1994. And what we found is higher levels of self-disclosure does increase that liking. Of course, we want that self-disclosure to be appropriate, but I think that's something you live and you learn and you manage. As long as you feel like it landed pretty well with the crowd or the folks that y'all were talking to or hanging out with, it's usually a good example and sign of self-disclosure. You can mention that, when I was younger, I broke my leg and I was stubborn. I didn't want to go, and then I realized I had to, and that's why maybe there's a little bit of a bent in my leg, right? That is an example. I don't know how accurate that is, but that's what my dad told me happened to him when he played hockey. So I just use that example. I don't even know if that's true, but that's what he told me. And he does have a little bit of I can see still the bent in his leg when he played hockey in high school. And so that's like an example of like self-disclosure. You tell somebody that, maybe you guys are talking about sports or injuries, and you're able to share something about yourself, and it kind of increases that person, like, oh, this person has things going on in their life. They have things that they can add to another person's life. It is quite attractive because another person can also learn from you, modeling behaviors. And so that's part of this as well. And for women, it also makes them feel safe. Like you have a lot of things going on and you're not a person that's going to, you don't have resources. That's truly where part of it comes from. You have some of those resources. You're able to be confident. You're able to protect her if she feels uncomfortable. And it's a good model for the children that you guys might potentially have. The next one is you appear more emotionally independent, which others perceive as less emotional baggage, which signals potential for the relationship to work out, higher potential, okay? You're not trying to impress others and that can be interpreted as not needing so much validation. And a lot of people feel like if someone needs a lot of validation, it's a lot of emotional baggage. So it almost feels like, why should I, if you're a person, man or woman, if you see somebody and they need a lot of validation, in your mind, it's almost like that's a lot of work and lower potential for the relationship to occur, right? It's a lower return of investment and you put so much more investment. Let's say, for example, we have two universities. This is an example that came through my mind because I'm going to school for my PhD. But let's say one university is very reputable, has a lot of research. It has maybe a clinic that you can get your residency for. And that school, maybe it has better funding. Maybe it's cheaper if you're going to pay for it, or there's like a lot more opportunities. So that's like a very good return for investment. Maybe you get a lot more job opportunities. Well, let's say the other one, it's newer, it's more expensive, there's no funding, maybe there's not much research opportunities, and you're not really sure what's going on. It's like, it's got a lot more variables in it. It's very likely that people are not going to go for that school, and maybe they're like in the same location. So really the other school is just a higher return for investment. You're going to pick that one. Similarly, it's harder for someone to want to be emotionally and physically attracted to someone that seems like it's just more baggage. And that would be men and women. The next one is you self-monitor for genuine reasons rather than just trying to impress. So this is an example that came up recently for me, and I'm going to talk about it in a more professional standpoint, as in like from my career, but I think it will apply as well. So basically, it comes across as a person as mentally stable and accountable rather than performative. And with my field, there's a lot of seminars and educational, continuing education and things like that. And so we go to a lot of these things a lot. And so if I'm going to like a seminar, for example, and the speaker is saying, this is something that I've found that no one else found. It has a 92% rate for couples to stay together. And this is the best idea for couples therapy since ever. This is what I found. These are my findings. You're going to walk away knowing more about couples than you ever have, right? So there's one. It seems a little salesy. And the next one might be more like, I've been working with couples for many years. And when I first came into couples therapy, it was intimidating. The first time I saw a couple wanting to divorce in session, I was actually terrified. I didn't know what to do. But I started to realize that these aspects within these behaviors shows me that they're just hurting. They love each other, they care about each other, and they're just miscommunicating. They don't actually want to get divorced. And I started to realize that I need to interpret them not just from what they're saying, but also how they feel. The indirect social cues, something like that, right? If somebody says that, for me at least, I would rather the person who's a little bit more authentic. They're more self-monitoring. I'm speaking from the sense of the people, right? Maybe I made a mistake there. I apologize. They're coming across more clearly. I made this mistake too when I was your age or when I was first starting out. To me, it's like, okay, this person I can trust more. Not a therapist who pretends like they've never done anything wrong and they're just selling me this, this class or this title or certificate on top of my license. I'd rather listen to somebody who tells me I made that mistake too. And they're self-monitoring. I made this mistake. I apologize if I spoke too harshly. It shows a little bit more of accountability and comfort. That's not fully self-monitoring, but sometimes it can be perceived that way as well. The next one is confidence is obviously an attractive factor. And what we see is relaxation. Physical relaxation is common with those who are confident, and it signals competence, social safety, and lower emotional volatility, which is why this is attractive. And this is attractive across all cultures based on research, especially in early impressions. Now, the last one is when you're more relaxed and you're not trying so hard, in your presence, in turn, you actually make other people feel more relaxed as well. And that feeling is so appealing, and they attribute that to you that they're actually more drawn to you and find you more attractive. And so the research is in the description box. If any of you guys are looking to build some skills, you can book a call with me. Go ahead and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.